Education, May 28, 2019, tentative budget meeting. It is 6:30. I'd like to welcome everyone for being here tonight. This time I'd like for everyone to stand and observe a moment of silence. Now the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, it is a scheduled meeting, so item number one, review of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions anyone wants to make to the agenda?
I'd like, if you don't mind, I'd like to remove item number 6 from the agenda tonight. I don't feel that I've got an accurate enough picture of the cost estimates to present it to you tonight. I've been assured by both the bidders that they'll have a 2-week or less window when we do, so I think we've got some more time to give me some additional time to study the bids. So I'd like to remove it, if you don't mind.
We have agreement of 3 board members with that. I'm good with that.
I'm good. I'm good with that.
Yes,
Something
good.
within the package.
It looks like we're good. So item number 6 will be taken from the agenda. Any other changes? If not, then I'll ask for a motion for the adoption of the agenda
I'll make that motion
as amended, I guess.
as amended.
We have a motion, Mr. Heisler,
I'll second.
and Mr. Tobey. All those in favor, signify say aye.
Aye.
Any public comments? No public comments? We're good?
We're good.
Okay. Under Student Support Services, item number 3, consider approval of 2019-2020 salary schedules. Do understand that there were some mistakes or something made for some of those, and we've corrected those, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Christie from there.
Do you have copies of that, Lisa, or do they already have a copy of the corrected version?
I can go make the corrected to get uploaded to the,
Okay, the corrected version got uploaded. If you look at, under the tentative budget, if the section where it called for a possible 1% pay increase, that number was inadvertently listed as 571,000, and it should have only been 297,000. So if you make that correction, from that point on, and I'm sure it'll come up again at the next item for discussion, but it would be my recommendation that, based on the fact that last year the folks seating around this table did not choose to increase revenues, that put us in a difficult situation on the budget. And so because of that reason, I did not, until this most recent event, did not recommend a pay increase. However, I would say to you tonight that I could support a 1% pay increase across the board for all staff if, in fact, this board does take into consideration the opportunity to increase revenues in August. That would offset a 1% pay raise.
That's your recommendation. All other things are the same as presented.
Everything else is exactly as presented.
Board member questions, comments?
No, go ahead. Okay. I'll address your suggestion, Mr. Christie. First, since the last meeting, I took a look at some of the, make sure I'm describing it correctly, the extra services chart under athletics, and specifically we had a presentation by the band director encouraging us to take a look at those. So I reached out and took a look at what he suggested and what's going on in Fayette County and Scott County, and then gave some thought to really kind of the safety aspect of what's going on with the band program and the 100 members in it. And I would like to propose that we tweak just that last page of the athletic schedule and increase the band extra services budget to $18,000. And I have a listing which reflects what was presented to us last week, which is marching band director would be $3,000, marching band assistant $2,500, and a second marching band assistant $2,500, and then a marching band assistant at $1,000, pet band director $3,000, pet band assistant $1,000, fall color guard at $2,500, and winter color guard at $2,500. I felt that the rest of the schedule, taken into comparison with, again, Scott, Fayette, and then also them bringing in Montgomery County, seemed fairly reasonable. But I wanted to suggest that we increase those items. And then once we get to the budget, I have an offset that I'm going to propose to pay for that.
Have you presented this to Mr. Christian and Alicia?
I have not, unless
Any other
I
comments?
know you read all those, I'm still struggling to find the page that you were reading from. What page was that in the?
I'll just pass to you what, if you don't mind. That's a revision of that last page.
Can you repeat those numbers again, Mr. Isom?
Or do you have copies for everybody?
Sadly, I've got copies of other things, but I didn't bring copies of that. Perhaps Ms. Ellis might be good enough to make a copy of it. If the board doesn't mind, I can move on to the second item. Sorry about that, I should have brought copies.
I just can't write that fast.
Well, then, if I could put a pause on that and then address the overall concept, and I do have copies of this. I would love for us to be able to position, to be able to pass along increases to our staff, teachers, staff, everybody that's involved in that. They certainly deserve it. But as you all well know, we're sitting at a budget right now that is showing a $1.2 million deficit. And I think practically we can go ahead and assume, just for sake of discussion, that we're probably going to pass a 4% increase, because we've got to get this narrowed down. Otherwise, if we keep having budgets like this, eventually we'll go broke. And even if we do that, that just trims it to $964,000. And I wanted to try to look out into some future years to see what the impact might be on sort of a top level basis, to see how sustainable a salary increase might be, or whether we had any additional room there. So I'll continue on the top level discussion. So if you take the revenues that we had right now and take it up to the full 4%, that gives us $596,000. If you take off the tax collection fee, that means we have $590,000 with the full 4% of additional revenue. And then offsetting that is step increases of $308,000 and next year's CERS increase of $187,000. So you subtract just those two items, and that gets us down to only having an additional $95,000 left over. Trying to think of what future years might look like. If next year we took the 4% and we had those known things, we'd have $95,000 extra dollars to spend on other things, and that doesn't take into account C-clauses and the increased costs of supplies. And if you take our current projected budget deficit and then subtract the additional revenue we're going to get from if we take the 4% tax rate as part of our budget discussion, that trims our deficit to $964,000. And quite frankly, to get back to zero, we'll have to do that for 10 years just to get back to zero. And from my standpoint, I'd love to be able to do a pay increase, but I don't know how we pay for it. We assume the budget's correct. Then I don't know how we would. I don't know how we would afford that. I don't know where the additional revenue would be. I've got some suggestions once we get into the meat of the budget, which is, and I can touch on it now if it'd be appropriate, is to employ a consultant. When I was at the National School Board Association, I heard a presentation from a consulting firm who had some ideas on how to trim budgets. It was quite complex. There's probably more than one consultant out there, but this consultant was in a similar district to ours and claimed, and I'm going to put quotes around it because you know these things are, that he was able to achieve somewhere close to $1 million in savings by tweaking various staffing levels down to a minute level. I have no idea whether we could achieve anything, but I think it's something we ought to look at is to see if there's any consultants out there that can help us with this. And I don't know if we could or not. But so to try to tie all that together, I would love to be able to do an increase, but I don't see how we can afford it unless there's a hole in the budget that I'm not aware of. And just as a side note, I'm personally not a big fan of across-the-board increases. I think, as they say, it's equal, but it's not equitable. And I'm a bigger fan of targeted increases. So that's my spiel about, while I'd love to be able to do an increase, I don't think we can afford it. And now, if we could return to this proposal.
Hang on, can I say
Yes,
something?
oh, I'm sorry.
During the last tax hearing meeting, Mr. Peridot sat there and said word for word exactly what you just repeated. He told you all, this is not going to be able, if we do this, we will not be able to give raises, we will not be able to do anything. Him and I both sat there and told him, said, you and 2 other board members voted to still not raise taxes, and now we're in this shape. And we're going to hurt the teachers, which again, hurt the kids by not giving any kind of raise. I just want to put on record that Mr. Peridot and I stated this would become a problem back then.
Matt?
Yeah, go ahead.
Last year, if you recall, I proposed several things that targeted increases in certain levels of pay, trying to get our teacher pays up to a level that's higher than the other districts around us, excepting Fayette County. And I concentrated just on the certified side. And then I also made a proposal that we go forward with a 4% increase on the personal tax rate and then a smaller increase on the real estate rate. And unfortunately, none of those proposals were valid. But I think one of the challenges we're in is last year's increase maybe, if it's like this one, maybe we could have picked up $250,000 if we'd gone with the 4%. But the pay increase that was passed last year was $750,000. So it certainly is one of the driving forces of why we have a deficit budget right now.
Yes, but then surrounding districts went in and did the exact same thing we had been doing previously and raised theirs as well, which is what we kept saying that night. And yes, you did make other motions, I do agree, you did. But in the end, did you vote with them?
Yeah, I did.
And I just wanted to make a point that is what we were saying the whole entire time that night. And Mr. Peridot, you can agree or disagree, but that was a conversation we had.
Any other board member comments or questions about salary schedules?
I feel like that we jumped around a little bit, went from salary schedules to budget discussion. Can we concentrate on salary schedules and then go?
Sure. I think that would be good to stay on salary schedules as of right now. You have a comment, because I wanted to comment, so I just wanted to make sure if you had a comment right now, Mr.
On the salary schedules?
Yes.
I'd like to get Mr. Christie's opinion on the proposal that Mr. Heisel has put forth.
Okay, can I just make a comment
Yeah.
before Mr. Christie? You know, I know anytime, and in the past, I've never liked the way that salary schedules have been handled in the past. And that's why I asked at the last meeting that we didn't need to see any surprises when we came here. These things should be shared with Mr. Christie and should be shared with Alicia before we got in here, and other board members be aware. The issue that has happened in the past, that is trying to be happening right now, is that certain groups would just come in. I know last year, I think it was attendance clerks that came in. Then we had nurses that came in. You know, we have to allow the superintendent to make a budget and present that to us. I don't know of any place else in the world that when you go to your boss, and then you go to your boss's boss, and they refuse to put it on the salary schedule, that you then try to overturn them by coming into a board meeting, which is what happens when this happens. These people, all people through here have had an opportunity to talk to their principal. They've had an opportunity to talk with the superintendent, and for some reason, their boss has said, this is the salary schedule that we want for this year. I'm not saying that other things cannot be addressed in other years, just as they have in the past. But we have to have a process to be able to do this. We cannot just let groups come in and decide that they want a raise, and they try to put pressure on board members to give a raise. Yes, it has worked in the past, and it will work again in the future. But I think it is important that we work with the superintendent and that we get a process in here, because I'm telling you, when you don't do it, next board meeting, you have another group. And next board meeting, you have another group. And I'm not saying nobody does, what they deserve or whatever. There's nobody works in this system that's doing their job, that's getting paid what they need to be getting paid. I will tell you that. I have 28 years of experience. But we have to have a process in which we do this, or we'll lose control of it. So that's why I made the statement last week. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Christie.
I did meet with Mr. Payne, Alicia and I both did when we were looking at, and I do plan on talking with him additionally about the instrument replacement schedule and those type things. But that's not a salary schedule, and I have not discussed a salary schedule. And it didn't come to me as a recommendation for any changes in that, and that's why it's where it is.
How many different stipend areas do we have in this entire district? Alicia? I mean, separate categories.
I have to account.
Just a guess, just rough estimate,
Probably 20 or more.
Yeah.
20 or more. So that's the potential of what you have, of 20 different people coming in and asking. That's why I say just respect the process of building a budget. Are we going to get it right every time? No, we're not going to get it right every time. But at least we have a process in place.
May I respond to that?
I'll give you just a little bit more. You have had your time, but I'll give you a little more.
All right. I believe that Mr. Christie had been copied on email from Mr. Payne on those suggested stipends, so it wasn't a surprise. Perhaps it was declined, but wasn't a surprise. And I think it's a board that, we need to take what administration proposing and then evaluate it and see if anything needs to be amended. And you said last week if there's any amendments, and so I was bringing this forward as an amendment.
Other questions or comments on the salary
I
schedule?
missed the first part of that, obviously, what exactly did the band ask for?
Same that I guess what Mr. Heisel did.
This, what you wrote down?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If there's not any other questions or comments from board members, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the amended 2019-2020 salary schedule, which includes a 1% increase in the salary schedule. We have a motion on the floor. And you can make an amendment to that motion if you would like.
Before or after the second?
This would have to be seconded first. The salary schedule, to approve the salary schedule would have to be seconded first.
I'll second it.
And seconded. All right, this time we can't take amendments at this time.
I would like to propose an amendment to that to reflect a change in the GRC athletic extra services to reflect a total band stipend of $18,000 as detailed.
Well, not in the athletic, you just want to do the change GRC band, correct?
Yes, I believe it was on the athletic stipend page.
Change GRC band stipends as reflected in the presentation, is that good enough? I mean, what's on your sheet?
Yes, sir. For a revised total of $18,000.
Okay, we have an amendment on the floor. It's been made. It would have to be seconded. Have to be seconded.
I don't feel comfortable seconding it this time just because I wasn't there, Scott. And that's my fault on that.
I'd like to have a little more time to evaluate this.
Me
So-
too. One more time.
So I'm not in a position to say anything.
Okay, motion would then fail for a lack of a second. This time, the motion on the floor is the approval of the amended 2019-2020 salary schedule, which reflect a 1% increase in the salary schedule certified and classified. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Item number 4, consider adoption of 2019-2020 tentative budget. So now it will include the amended salary schedule and a possible 4% revenue increase. I don't know, Mr. Christie or Alicia wants to address this at this time.
My recommendation would be to adopt the tentative budget with the amended salary schedules and consideration given to the
Revenue.
potential revenue increase in August.
Board members, questions or comments?
Can someone point me to the correct page that had the correction? Is it-
It looks like this.
It's on a separate page.
It looks like this right here. This is the new,
It's on the PVA?
yeah, this is the new that shows this. This is the old that shows this. So
I just don't find
kind of look at that, so.
Mr. Barrett, are we in the discussion phase now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do you have,
it. No,
okay.
for now.
I've 6 proposed amendments to this, and one of them might be unnecessary because of the previous action. My first amendment is, I think, as stated previously, since we're running now an even greater budget deficit of, probably now we're at a $1.5 million budget deficit, I think it's only logical that we take the 4% maximum tax increase across the board. Item number 2, to try to trim that down some, there's a line item on page 25 which doubles the board per diem payments from $15,000 to $30,000. I'd like to rescind that and keep the board per diem payments at $15,000. Item number 3, I would like to be able to provide additional funding for band supervision at a cost of $8,500, but I think that's probably not going to be appropriate since the salary schedule did not reflect that, so I'll skip that. Item number 4, to try to save a little bit of money, even though I certainly want to have as safe as district as possible. I think that to trim $90,000 from the budget, we ought to reduce the number of SROs from 3 to 1 in terms of the additional SROs that have been proposed. Item number 5, I think to generate additional revenue for the budget, we ought to seek sponsors for the stadium and gym scoreboard, video boards via an RFP process. And number 6, I think we should get quotes for what I'll call budget optimization consulting. As an example of some folks that are out there, this guy's got a book called Better Way to Budget and Spending Money Wisely, Getting the Most Money from School District Budgets. I certainly don't want to be recommending a specific vendor, but I wanted to open up that as a discussion point to have administration looking into that from different vendors, see if there would be any possibility that they could be useful for our district. Could be the answer is no, they're all snake oil salesmen, but with the possibility that they could help us tweak it. I mean, we've got to come up with something to dig out of this now $1.5 million or $1.25 million hole that we're in. Otherwise, we're going to go through our contingency fund in a few years and be. Those are my
You
Those
have
are my
those?
five
What was
things.
number one?
I do have those. I've got copies of these. I can't do everything, Ron.
And again, with these, Ms. Rice, I'd ask, have you sat down and talked with the superintendent about these?
No, I've not.
Yeah, again, I want, I hate to keep harping on what, procedures and things should be. But again, our job as a board is not to develop a budget. Our job as a board is to adopt a budget. And obviously, we have influence on that by speaking with the superintendent and meeting with the superintendent. And again, it just makes it difficult on every board member, whether or not you are right or whether you are wrong, for us to look at a budget last week, go all this week, the other members speak with the superintendent, and then get presented with an item tonight that we have never, ever even looked at. Some of the things that you're asking for, I know you've talked about the board per diem, of course, that policy will come up there. There's nothing we can do about that. It is a law. We have to pass that law. There's nothing in there that we can do, but we can address that whenever that policy comes up as well. It is smart on Alicia's part and Mr. Christie's part to go ahead and put that in the budget as of right now, because we cannot change the law. As stated here by KSBA, that their statement is, statute requires the Board of Education to authorize a per diem. Goes on down to say, board members individually may elect to waive their per diem. It's the law. But again, we'll argue that when we get to that. The rest of it, whether it's good or whether it's bad, it just bothers me that you can't sit down with the superintendent, hash these things out, and then the superintendent can make a decision. He can relay those things to us. It's just difficult to come into a meeting to deal with some things like this without any warning or any time for us to even be able to go back and check them. Other board member comments or questions?
I have a question. With the 1% increase, if we do, we do pass the August tax rate, where are we fiscally?
So adding the 297, 246 with the 1%, so you're adding that to your expenses. If you do the 4%, you were down, so it's adding essentially back to the 1.2, you were already in the deficit, 32,000 essentially. So we'll be $1,261,500. Take a 4% tax and give a 1% salary increase.
So we'll take the 1.2 down to 126 deficit?
Well,
Is
we
that-
were at 1,229,000 before any
Mhm.
taxes or salaries were decided. So essentially, we're adding another 32,000 to that, so we're 1,261,000.
Okay, right now. But if we do the 4%,
4% covers all but 30,000.
4% covers
all but
everything other than-
30,000.
Yeah.
30,000 of it?
Still essentially
No, we're,
1.2.
if we take the 4%, we're at a $1.2 million deficit because we just did a 1% pay increase to offset that tax rate.
Yeah, but going forward in August, if we
Yes,
do the
that's-
4% increase then,
Calculating that into that total.
we will still be 1.2? Okay.
And that's still your worst case conservative budget, correct? Which usually runs very conservative, usually have money left over. That's why I'd said before at the other meeting, I wasn't comfortable with a 1% or any kind of raise because Mr. Christie, or at least our finance officer, would not recommend it, but after the correction in the mistake, they came back and said that they could recommend it, and just for new board members, this is not unusual. Well, we did have a consultant in Dr. Bob, when he came in, many times we passed a negative budget, but he would recommend the raises. And he did that because it was a conservative budget. He said, your budget can withstand this without any problem. And I'm going and thinking that Alicia and Mr. Christie have done the same thing again this time. And that's my feelings on the raise.
So we used a consultant before in the past?
We use
OVEC.
OVEC that has come in
He
the
passed
past,
away.
and that, and Dr. Bob, like I said, he did a very good job of building a budget, much the same way. I think Alicia's done the same, went right along the same lines and same areas that he has done. I mean, you know, Dr. Bob was a retired superintendent. I mean, we're not looking at anybody, you know, that's come from any type of financial background other than he worked with schools and those schools. And I think last year Alicia felt like that she was comfortable enough to be able to do it. This is her first one, and that's why I've said many times that I think she's been very conservative in a lot of different areas because she knows it's her. And that's the confidence that I got from her about the 1% raise. And I think it sends a good message to our staff when we can do that as well. Again, this district is still in very good shape financially with our contingency. Again, you don't want to rob from the contingency every year, but we are on very solid ground, I do believe, and I think most people will agree. I think most people would love to have the problem we have right now with our contingency.
Mr. Peridot, may I respond to
Sure.
your comment about the board per diem? I'd also research it, and sort of the law says it needs to go from 75 to 150. I didn't have a problem with that, but the maximum was what I was going to suggest we leave in place, much like we did. The law last changed in 2007, and we didn't increase the maximum from $2,000 to $3,000 until 2014. Actually, Ms. Ritchie was on the board then. And so the maximum had been increased to $3,000, but we didn't change that policy for 7 years. And I was suggesting a similar
Well, again,
action.
I think that when we get to that policy, that'll give our attorney plenty of time to look the policy over, and we can make any adjustments that we can at that time. And policies have not been delivered to us as of yet. I think it'd be best if we just wait till we knew we were going to pass the policy or what we were going to do with it. So, but, taking $30,000 out of the budget won't be a difficult job if we have to do it at that time. Other questions or comments on the budget proposal? If not, I'll make a motion to adopt the 2019-2020 tentative budget with the amended salary schedule and the revenue increase. So we have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
There's a second by Mr. Tallby. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Have a 4-1 vote there. Motion passes. Item number 5, consider partial or total approval of summer work projects. Mr. Christie.
You know, we've had each year we get into our summer work projects. We've got a 5-year plan that we've been working off of. The asphalt plan, paving plan's a little bit newer than the 5 years. My recommendations this time is to approve. I think you've received a copy of the paving list. It's to it's concrete. I've got, if you need I could put these up. It shows each one the different colors, the ones that we've already paved, what we sealed last year, and what's due to be done. But we've got a plan, and we're into our 3rd year into this plan. It calls for a total of $187,761 in paving and sealing. That would be at the schools, of concrete, parking lot 1 and 2, that's in the front. The Campbell side drive around beside Campbell and the rear parking lot is getting in really bad shape, so that would include redoing it. In Baker, it would be the front lot with repair and possibly to remove those islands to create a little more space in that parking lot there. That includes that. And then at Campbell, I'm sorry, I said concrete first, and Campbell is the parking lot. It's to repave the parking lot, the lower parking lot out in front of the track area at Campbell. That's a total of $187,761. My recommendation for that, and the other things that I'm going to mention here, is first that we use our capital outlay funds That's for construction projects. That's a total right now. We have 252,000 available there. We'll have our capital outlay funds again that we'll get next year, another 190. So in addition to the paving and sealing and the striping of the parking lots, I'm recommending the painting, interior painting of Baker. That's all hallways, cafeteria, all areas except the classrooms are completely inside. The classrooms would go on the schedule for next year, once we do the hallways and everything this year. And it would also to repaint the interior and just the interior offices in the hallway at the bus garage. Those have never been done since that building was built. So that's at a total of, all of that's a total of $57,400. Tile the flooring at Shearer Library and at Strode office area. That's replacing the carpet and going with tiles there, that's going to be a cost of $19,611.13. The next thing was fencing at GRC and at Strode Station. The fencing at GRC is to clean out that fence line across the front, clear out a lot of the brush, and go back with a plank fence that matches the fence that's up and down there on each side of GRC, kind of tie into those to give it a look there. That's a cost of, and then also at Strode, in the back, as you come out the backside, there's a little outside eating area for the kids. And right now, that's just kind of open. We're looking at putting a fence across there to enclose that so that the kids could go out. It would be a safe area for the kids to go out. It'd be a locked area where people couldn't just come in. So that's at a cost of $10,000. And the last one was an upgrade of some tools and software equipment at the bus garage. This is for the new buses we've got. Right now we have one computer. We've got 3 bays and 3 mechanics that can work on buses, but with one computer with the software programs that analyzes the buses, the computers. The other 2 have to wait till the computer's available, so I'm asking for $15,000 to replace or to purchase 2 more computers so that we can have maintenance guys on all 3 buses and all 3 bays. That's a total of $364,127. And then the last one that I would like to recommend is at Justice. In the backside, we now, at dismissal time, we pull the buses for Justice up on the parking lot at Concrete. The buses, there's 7 buses at Justice, and those buses load fairly quickly, but they have to sit and wait the entire time until Concrete's 13 or 14 buses are loaded, and they can't pull out. I'm proposing to put a bus lot down behind Justice. There's an area behind the cafeteria where there's enough room to make a bus loop there for the 7 buses so that the Justice kids come out the back of their building and get immediately on the buses, and when those buses are loaded, they can go ahead and leave, which will create probably a 10-minute savings in time in getting 7 buses back to the high school for the next dismissal, and that's crucial. 10 minutes doesn't sound like much, but 10 minutes and 7 additional buses is huge in the transportation department. That's at a cost of $79,250.
What is the total? You got the total?
The total of all those things combined is $483,441.05.
And what is our capital outlay?
Capital outlay this year is $250
Plus.
252 and 190, right at 440.
440.
440.
So basically, you'd be looking at about 43,000 out of contingency. The rest would come out of capital outlay.
Yes.
Board member comments or questions?
Now, we can use this year's capital outlay and next year's because some of these projects wouldn't be built until next year, so the new capital outlay funds would be
So
in.
it would cover
It would
all
fit.
of it. I mean, it could be a range thing, I guess.
Now, these are estimates. As we do bids, we'll try to beat it down $40,000 to get it down inside the capital outlay.
Right.
These are just estimates, and we've not,
Mr. Peridot, I got confused on your math there. Was that $483,000 was the total?
that's with all the things, the paving, the painting, the tiling, the fencing, the upgrades at the bus garage, and the new parking bus loop at Justice.
And we have $252,000 available?
This year, we just did a capital funds request to move 252,000 into general fund.
Okay.
And then next year, we'll have 190 available, so between the
That
two,
in July.
442,000.
Between the two?
Between this year's 252 that we moved to general fund,
Mhm.
so that's capital money, and then next year 190,
Okay.
90,000. So there's some that we won't even start till July 1, so we can use that 190 in the next fiscal year.
So, Mr. Christie, did you go over the painting of Baker? Is that included in this?
Yes, the painting at Baker is, it's all offices, the lockers, hallways, atrium. It's the entire building with the exception of classrooms. And then my plan from there would be next year to come before you'd ask to paint the classrooms when we need to be painting the hallways next year. It's just on a rotation plan. The carpet and things that we're talking about at Shearer and Strode, that eliminates the carpet. We're going to tile. And then the only carpet would be in the, I think it's in the library, but it's it's not even a carpet like fiber. It wears longer, wears better. It doesn't have the attributes of a regular carpet.
And the 10,000 for fencing at GRC and Strode?
And Strode.
So the GRC, are you talking, is this taking out all those trees on the road?
We can't take those trees completely out there on that, in the embankment area. We can't bother those because those are there for soil erosion purposes, but everything outside that embankment part there, we can. So from the stadium side, you'll see all the fence, and from the main road, you'll see the fence. Our plan there, we've already got permission from the state to do that. We've got written approval for them to take out their fence and put our plank fence in. It would kind of tie into the two fences on each side, so it looks in. The only problem I think I remember on that fence as you're facing the high school, the fence on the left side of the property is black and the fence on the white side's white, on the other side's white, so we've got to come to some decision on what color to go with across there.
Just to clarify, what was in the packet are just quotes, and if you move forward, you actually bid these items out, is that correct?
Yeah, we'll see if we can get them down some, yeah. We've got quotes from folks that has done a lot of work for us in these areas in the past.
Okay.
And we got quotes there, but they aren't the official bids.
And the upgrade tools and the software and equipment, that can come out of the capital outlay fund? The upgraded tools,
It's 'cause it's for
software, and
maintenance.
equipment for new
It's
buses?
bus maintenance.
That can come out of capital outlay funds?
I'll have to verify for sure, but it should be able to, as long as it's something that is needed in the maintenance area. That is, has been covered in the past. I will verify that again. We bought equipment and tools
Before,
in
so
the past.
they've approved it in the
Capital
past.
funds, and they said it was a purchase. Reimbursement.
Things like band equipment, could that also come out of capital outlay funds?
It's not.
No, it's not.
And equipment's not maintenance.
Okay. So because this is related to maintenance, then that's why that can come out of that.
I would assume that's the one.
Other questions, comments? And board members, we can do any or all of these things. This is not a there, it's just, again, recommendations from superintendents, and I'm sure that if you went to every one of these schools, they would assure you that their project is important, so.
And I will also add, anything that you choose to not do tonight, you will hear again next year. It'll be on the list, it'll be a number one priority again next year, so. There's a schedule that we have that we're going through all of our asphalt, all of our paint, all of our carpets, we've got them on rotations.
I would just ask that if we did take bids and anything went over bid, and that it come back to the board on what we would knock off instead of just arbitrarily knocking something off.
We can do that.
If we would just best to
That's easy, we can do
be
that.
able to do something like that and try to keep it at this level.
Only move forward on the things that when the bids come in, that they're actually at that or lower than what I presented to you tonight.
Correct, unless it comes back to what I would suggest.
So, Mr. Christie, since we're using 2 years of capital outlay funds, what, do you think we won't have projects next year, or how will we fund next year's project?
Well, We'll have to discuss that next year. I mean, these are things that they need to be done. The capital outlay is one area, and that's, again, we're trying to avoid using the contingency as much as possible on this year, because of the other things that we've done. Trying not to affect it any more this year.
I mean, essentially, it'd be the same. If it was 750,000, then we'd still have to take something out of contingency as well as use capital outlay. I mean, things that need to be done need to be done. And I would think people at the schools would like to have these done as soon as possible, would be my guess. And we are in a position with the capital outlay, and that's not to say something else won't come up that we could have used capital outlay for, but the same thing, you know, will come in. I mean, where do you start drawing the line? If it needs to be done, it needs to be done.
Each year that we've come into, if we didn't use all of the capital outlay on this kind of thing, I've come back toward the end of the year with a list of maintenance items that we have already performed and paid for, and try to recoup the capital outlay money that goes back into the general fund that way. So in years past, that's the way we've done it. If we didn't use it, I've came before you with requests, went back and pulled purchase orders of things that we did spend it on, and then made that request of KD. Obviously, all these things that I'm asking you here would also be pending KD approval for expenditures of that fund. So it'll go to KD for them to look at also. So any kind of a motion or anything would that need to have pending KD approval.
And so like any of our educational tools that we need for coming up this year, that's going to come out of the contingency. We don't build that into the budget. That's just going to be.
Now that'll be, those are one-time expenditures. The things that's built into the budgets are
Repeat.
Repeat, yeah. And these are one-time expenditures. But we're able to use capital outlay for these things where we can't for the curriculum type things.
Okay.
And there will be soon be coming to talk about some other things too.
What are the wishes of the board? Do we want to take all this on? Do you want to choose, pick?
I'm not sure how you can take one out and justify taking one out but leaving one in.
I think you need to have some kind of maintenance, because those things do need to be done. And I think it's good to rotate, keep it rotated.
Yeah, I will say, there's a lot of these things that should have been acted on in past years that for some reason or another were not. And as you can see, maintenance problems do not go away. They just continue to multiply and compound, as Mr. Christie says. We have been in a position with our contingency for the last 5 to 6 years that we could have done these. And, to me, I think it's a good opportunity, especially with our capital outlay the way it is right now, to go ahead and get these things done. And I would assume from Mr. Christie, these are the most pressing things right now,
Yes.
and that's not to say something pressing is going to come up down the line, because it will. It always does when you have this many buildings, this many people going in and out of them. So, but we still are in a very good position to do anything else even after this.
So on the last page of our packet, you have either or for Campbell side drive rear parking, or Campbell side drive, either to the new pavement or cracking.
And I'm going to tell you, if you're going to look at that pavement, spending $10,000 or $9,000 to seal it, it'll be the same shape next year, and it's $10,000. If we're going to maintain that, it's time to replace it at this point. I mean, it's been sealed and patched and pieces cut out and put back in, and there's still water. They're still down around the lower end where that drive is. By the gate down there, you'll see the drain down there, and you can step your whole foot inside there where it's caved in around it. So that would include repair around the drain and building that back up and making it safe. We have to, a lot of times, cone that off. We fill it up, and it washes out. And my recommendation was to go ahead and just replace the asphalt. Now, that's your choice. If you're willing to spend only $9,000, you can take, Seven.
85 versus the
Yeah, it's
9.
85 versus 9, 85,000 to completely come in and they shave off the top of the asphalt, go back down and replace it with, I think it's 2 inches of asphalt. And that's what we did on the upper parking lot. We've already done that on the upper parking lot.
Will they do that during the summer?
Yes.
So it won't affect school?
No.
Huh. I can't imagine them trying to do that during the summer.
That's why you're seeing a lot of this
That's
stuff
what-
that's right now, is because it
If there's no other questions or comments from Mr. Christie, I entertain a motion. I can make a motion to approve total approval of summer work projects not to exceed a price of $483,441.05
pending KD.
pending KDE approval.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. At this time, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn,
A second.
second by Ms. Albee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. It's 7:21.